Well, I'd also like to thank you for allowing us into your homes for this 22nd edition of Season 3 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And I am very honored today to have as my guests George Humphrey, some may recognize from Common Sense here on Access. He needs no further introduction, I'm sure. And we have visiting from out of town, George Green, who has published a handful of books that we feel are very relevant, and we'd like to share some of George's insight publicly and give you some idea as to some of the content of the books and the reason for us promoting these books. And so, George, if you please give a bit of background.
Well, for your listener, to give you an idea who I am, I was a real estate developer. I built in 22 states. My last major real estate project was $100 million. I had a bank. I was a registered financial principal and a broker-dealer in the securities business for 25 years. I used to play around with the guys that are planning on taking over the world. In relationship to what they're doing and what's happening right now is part of the lecture that I'll be doing a little bit tomorrow. But when it comes down to these books, which I think are the most important books on the planet, they actually transpired with a meeting that began, well, I'll tell you a little bit of the story. In 1984, I built a house in Aspen, Colorado, and the housekeeper had a book called UFO Contact from the Pleiades, and in it were incredible color photographs of extraterrestrial spacecraft.
Was this a Billy Meyer?
Yeah, the Billy Meyer material. Okay. Now, what it triggered me is because in 1958, basically 26 years before that, I happened to be in the Air Force, and I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, and one morning I did the post-flight inspection on the X-15. That's the forerunner of the space shuttle. And it lands out in the desert. Actually, the X-15 is nothing more than a rocket with skids on it. Guys got to be an idiot to fly it, but they did it. At any rate, when I finished doing the inspection on the north end, a couple of miles or a mile and a half away from where the craft landed was a couple of hangars that I hadn't been in, and I just went inside one. And I'm sitting here looking at this spacecraft about 30 feet across, silver in color. It's disc, a round craft. It was unusual, but I've been working on all the top secret craft that we have, and a lot of them were unusual. So anyway, when I went back into my commander, I asked him if I could work on the round craft, and he says, "You saw that?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, it was an ion-powered craft designed by Sikorsky, that's the helicopter people, for use in outer space." I accepted what he had to say. And then I asked him, when can I work on it? And he says, "You can't. It's still a civilian project." Now, for people who don't know about Edwards Air Force Base, that's the Air Force Research and Development Center, where the military is contracted with civilians to create the craft that we're flying around. And so it's kind of the crossover base. Well, at any rate, that craft was kind of indelible to me, and I was a little upset because I didn't get to see it. But I went back to my room and I talked to my buddy about the craft, and he said, "What did they tell you?" And I told him the story, and he told me it was a lie. And he proceeded to show me pictures of the spacecraft along with two dead aliens. Got my attention. I mean, they were humanoid looking, similar to the ones that you see in New Mexico, the Roswell incident.
The gray style with the larger heads.
Yeah, but they didn't. These had a flat stomach that wasn't raised up and everything. Anyway, I was a little confused. I mean, here I am. I have all the badges. I'm top secret, and I have all the allowance to go everywhere. Why did he lie to me? So I went back down and asked my commander, and the commander said, "When the government's ready to tell the truth about UFOs and ETs, they will. Until then, you stick to your story." And then he reminded me of my top secret clearance was jail time and a fine. Anyway, that kind of ended everything, and I'll tell more of that in my story tomorrow on what happened. But in 1984, when I built this house in Aspen, here I'm looking at the Billy Meyer material, and they were identical to what I saw at Edwards 25 years before. That got me
the so-called beam ships?
Right. At that point, what I did, because my curiosity got up, I grabbed my plane and I flew down to Phoenix, and I talked to this couple who said that they were investigating a man in Switzerland, that's Billy Meyer, who said that they, the extraterrestrials, engineered planet Earth for 500 million people, and basically gave me a lot of information about this being a prison planet. Each of the races come from different star systems, and a lot of information that kind of fell into pieces that I had. Some of my background, which I didn't tell you, I went to Colorado School of Mines. I majored in geophysics, and there's some geophysical anomalies throughout the planet that didn't make sense. We have what we call the fudge factor that we used. But anyway, this answered some of the questions that I had from the beginning on it. Anyway, I ended up making a deal with this couple in Arizona, to finance the publication of their second book. What the idea was that when they sold the books, I would get my money back, because I was building, you know, I have to understand, I'm building buildings and restaurants and everything else all over the country, even right here.
Oh, okay.
So what happened is, after about 90 days, the couple in Phoenix sent me the accounting, but no check. And I called them on the phone. I said, "Where's my money?" And they said, "Well, you don't need it." And I said, "Right." Anyway, I flew down to Phoenix and I filed suit against them. During this period of time, they'd been sharing a lot of the documents that I had got from the Switzerland case, and it just fascinated me. So I wanted to go find out for myself. So unannounced, grabbed a plane, flew off to Switzerland, rented a car. It's about a 45-minute drive outside of Zurich, a little town called Hinterschmidt-Rudi, and I'm knocking on the door. This young lady comes up, and she says, "My name's Bruni," and I said, "Well, I'm George Green, and I put the money up for the publication of your books in the United States." And I said, "I also put money into a movie that's being made." And I says, "I have some real questions." She said, "We're not talking to Americans. They're all crooks." I accepted what she had. I said, "Look, I understand that. I mean, I'm involved with a lawsuit, right?" And I said, "Well, I think your story is more important than that, and the people on the planet need to know the truth about this information. You go back and tell Billy that I'm here, and if it makes sense to me," I said, I'll go ahead and fund this whole project." Anyway, she come back about 10 minutes later, and she says, "Mr. Green, I'm sorry. Shirley MacLaine was here 2 months ago, and she promised to help us, and nothing happened." And I said, "Well, look, I don't know what to tell you about this. That's the end of the story. I don't want to impose of your time anymore. Where's the closest hotel?" And I said, "I'm going to head off to Innsbruck tomorrow and make a vacation out of this." Well, she told me where the hotel was, and we left. That was the end of it. Next morning at 7 o'clock, knocking on my door was Bruni. She says, "Mr. Green, I got a message for you." And it happened to be 2 pages signed by Quetzal, who happened to be the Pleiadian commander who was in contact with Billy.
Okay.
In those 2 pages of information was incredible information.
And obviously written in English, handwritten.
Hey, no, it was tight. But
Okay.
I'll tell you what it did was, you had to be sleeping with me to know about this stuff.
Right.
It got my attention.
Okay. So very intimate details were
Right.
disclosed.
Yeah, that's to make sure that what I was dealing with was real, and they were really aware of what was happening. So
Okay.
I was invited back to the compound where Billy is at, and I'll be showing pictures of that in my lecture that comes down anyway.
And by the way, tomorrow from 2 to 6 at North
We have
Cross
a slate,
Mall.
actually. We have a
Yeah,
slate
bring
for
that slate because everybody needs to know about that.
Yeah, so we'll
Anyway.
get that slate up. Please continue.
Anyway, what happened is this thing, all of a sudden, I spend the next week get my mind totally blown away. Everything that I thought I knew about this planet, and I'm a bookworm, I kind of read everything. It turns out about everything's based on a lie. And you'll get all these fudge factors you look at. But anyway, I got a lot of questions answered. At the same point is I made an agreement indirectly to help by what they said. They're allowed to give us information. And I said, well, I'll do what I can about getting the information out to the people as much as I can, but I have one problem. I said, look, I'm a real estate developer and a banker. I'm always involved with lawsuits, and I don't like that. And I'm already involved with a lawsuit because you've already given away the rights of this story to these people down in Phoenix. I said, no problem, though. My attorney, I had a house in Beverly Hills at that time, among my toys that I had. Anyway, my attorneys out there happened to be the attorneys for the Screen Actors Guild. And what happened is I flew back, I told them I'll fly back to the United States and take care of the problem. I flew back and told, it's Dern, Mason, and Plown, just so you know what it is. I come in with Dern. I told him I made a deal with extraterrestrials, and he looks at me like I'm a nut.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Anyway, I told him, I said, I need to break a contract. So, and I gave him basically the story, and he says, fine, let me handle it. And about 5 weeks later, he calls me up on the phone. He says, George, we got it all taken care of. Come on over to my office. So I come over there to his office, which is his address is 1600 Avenue of the Flakes. Have you been there? That's right out there, Avenue of the Stars, I'm sorry.
I used to live in Los Angeles. So.
Okay, well, anyway, I got up there in his office, and he says, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You fly Billy over here to the United States, which is normal. We'll have a hearing in front of the judge, and we'll get rid of this crazy contract, and you can continue your agreement with the extraterrestrials. From his office, I talked to Billy on the phone, and we're sitting here talking. It said, George, I showed you pictures of California being destroyed in an earthquake. He was taken forward in time, and I actually saw the pictures of the destruction of San Francisco. He says, I don't know when the event's going to be here. I have 3 children, and I'm safe. You're going to have to find another way. And I says, I don't know about me, but the extraterrestrials are going to have to find another way. So when I left the office, this is out of Beverly Hills, to drive down to my house in San Diego, we had one of their beam ships follow us for about 45 minutes in broad daylight. Just to remind me what was happening was not a, an X-Files thing. I mean, my life really went upside down from that point on. Anyway, that went along for a while, and then we got involved with some other people which we thought were in contact, and we thought we'd find out something. Anyway, what really happened about 4.5 years ago, I was building a building in Las Vegas, and the extraterrestrials contacted me again. Number one, they wanted me to get me out of Vegas because the energies in Vegas were so negative. They said we want to make sure that there was clear transmission and that we could have the information imparted because we're running out of time.
And so at this point, you realized you were going to be the recipient of some information that you were to be making public.
Oh,
on
yeah.
as vast a scale
I
as
made
possible.
an agreement. You know what I said? This is, hey, I don't know how you do this any different. I'm talking to extraterrestrials, and I said, you got my word, and if my word's no good, nothing is. I mean, what else can you have? Pieces of paper or nothing, right?
No, I would agree.
So anyway,
Your
I
intent.
said, that was all I
intent.
did. I gave him my word to do that. So anyway, I ended up moving up to another part of, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and at that point, that began the journey of receiving information to awaken mankind to who and what you are, and what you can do to help change the ending of the story, or what the bad guys have got planned for us. Now I got to digress a little bit.
Okay, please.
When I was running around with the guys planning on taking over the world, and I'll be sharing this tomorrow, I have all the plans on what they're planning on doing to everybody. And that really bothered me a tremendous amount. And so in this area, then, not only do we have the problems being presented to us by supposedly the media and such, or what Washington wants to deliver to you, we also need solutions. Well, I'm one of these people, if they create the problem, they always create a solution for themselves. So I'll share you what the solutions I found within their own books, because I have them. And also, on a much bigger picture, the planet itself is so affecting the universe in a big way that the energies that we have generated are permeating throughout not only this universe but other universes, and we're kind of the cesspool right now.
And people tend to take that for granted, that Earth really does have a place of tremendous importance that far resonates outside of our solar system and affects other sentient individuals and self-conscious beings, correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's approximately 1 trillion planets in this galaxy alone. That's 1,000 billion, inhabited by humanoids. And we, this planet, if you take the Pleiadians' information, which I'll basically give you what they've told us, can you imagine a planet where people live to be 1,000 years old? There's no disease, no illness, and you have the ability to, by following the laws, in order to create the best roses in the world, the best paintings, and there's nobody out there trying to bother you at all.
And no competition?
None of this is all set up. It's all done for the highest and best good in mankind.
Right.
Well, there was a planet. In fact, there were several of them. But within the universe, if you got good guys, you got bad guys. Anyway, if the bad guys started attacking the planet, and they started killing him, well, within the universe, there's a rule that says, thou shalt not murder thy fellow man in thought or deed. Well, if you don't protect yourself, however, that's suicide or self-murder. That's also against the law. So this group that are more advanced decided the solution to this problem, so they didn't have to follow or getting more into the problems of, if you want to call it karma or whatever, was to look around for less developed humanoids on the evolutionary scale, like we're playing around right now, re-engineer their DNA, give them limited life and intelligence so they act as air warriors. Makes sense to me. So they went out and did their fighting. Now what happened is what they created turned out to be another bad thing, like we do when we create bad things. They turned on who created them. So what their solution is to send them to the end of the universe, to a planet which has and always has been used as the prison planet. Welcome to planet Earth. All the different races come from different star systems. And they're all here for certain reasons. The blacks in Africa were created to mine the gold, frankly. All the other ones, why do we have about 180 wars going on right now?
At least that.
That's because within our structure we have that fight or fight.
Confrontational.
Yeah, it's all built within our DNA. Biblically speaking, in the book of Genesis where it talks about the gods coming down and mating with one, that's to reintroduce the DNA that brings back the spiritual nature of man. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be showing you that you're nothing more than condensed light or a hologram. And I'll physically do some
I feel that that's the
demonstration.
case, just from my own intuitive understanding as well.
That's all you are. If you consider, to give you an idea, if you consider thought is a projection, think.
And it
you're
is
putting out a
energy
plus-
as well.
As an energy. If you put out a +1 within the law of physics, you have to have an equal and opposite reaction. A -1, right? So get a +1. What if we double the power? +2, -2, +3, and so on. That's basically where it upset me was when you go to School of Mines, you use the periodic table of elements. What if all the periodic table of elements are all based on light? That means everything is a function of light, because if I take a +2 and a -2 and add them together, what do you have?
Nothing, I'd imagine.
0. So what it turns out, this is a huge illusion of thought. Well, the truth is, that's what we are. We're a product of the thought of the creation or expansion.
And
of
we can
that.
get into terms of frequency and density and things of that
And
nature.
so everybody is different. The wild card on this universe is a substance called free will.
Right, that conditions all self-conscious.
It's all this. So anyway, the basis of my lecture tomorrow is to actually show people pictures of the extraterrestrials' craft, some of the extraterrestrials. I'll even make a point of showing you a free energy device tomorrow, too.
Wonderful.
So you'll be
We're in
able to-
need of that sort of thing.
Well, they're all out here. I mean, the planet, if people think about it, the
Right.
moon was an artificial planet. Our artificial satellite was put in there so we could harness the second most power that we have that's available to us, the tides. We could convert all the tides into power. I mean, look, the Bay of Fundy was all set up, up in Michigan, if you were talking about it earlier. If that was it a 30-foot drop that they have, and don't think about that power we're wasting. We don't have to be having all this electricity, using up all of these other things happening.
Convince your ex-buddies of that, and we'll all be in a better shape.
No, because they can't make money of that.
At my point,
I
exactly.
mean, it's kind of like if you go to
There's
Las
no
Vegas
profit
today,
factor in there.
Here's Las Vegas is a huge city that's running 24 hours a day. How much power does it get from the Hoover Dam? 0.
None?
None. They created their own outside of the game so they could continue to do it. It's a coal-fired plant up there.
Oh,
Well, see,
it's news to me.
we're all it's all over money and greed and power, and that's the whole basis of the
I think
entire-
people realize that. It's just the other nuances and then the complexities and the whole comprehensive picture that crops out of that people have a difficult time taking in its entirety.
Well, that's where I'm going to try to share tomorrow a little bit more. My lecture will last about 3.5 to 4 hours, and I'm going to open it up to questions because as the extraterrestrials, I'm kind of their spokesperson. They said their quote, I've been well trained. From
Well,
my background.
right. You seem to have the kind of the jack of all trades kind of background, and I think it would behoove them to find somebody that was that comprehensive in their scope that they could have, from your background and your benefit, somebody that could be the proper emissary.
Well, it's like what I'm trying to do is get people so they'll come out, listen to the information, discern what I have. In other
It's
words,
a good word. Discernment.
Well, we got to. Everything, even what I say, heaven's sakes,
Yeah.
I want you to go check out what I have. You know what it does? It makes you to start to find out what the truth is.
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
the truth
Challenges
can be
you.
changed so drastically, but by awakening you to the possibility that there's something else going on, and also the possibility that you're responsible for what's going on.
We need to touch upon that perhaps. Maybe this is a good time. Self-responsibility and the victimhood mentality. How do we change people's perspectives and inform them past the point of just some little hypothetical theory and make them aware of a real knowing acknowledgement that we are not victims and we have real power?
Well, we got to come back to the point of our education. It's been on for centuries because it's not only this life, it's previous lives. I mean, you actually, believe it or not, you pick your parent.
I do. I've spoken
Life
about that
life
previously.
begins at conception. Interesting story, just so and I'll share this with the people. I don't know whether I say it tomorrow or not to make any difference. But when I was running around the world checking out other extraterrestrials, when I was in Spain with Dr. Antonio Rivera, and he's in contact with a group of extraterrestrials from the planet Umo, they were discussing when life begins. And at the moment of conception, there's a gas called krypton. Interesting? And that forms the DNA programming for the vehicle that we call the human body. Well, they were sharing some cures for cancer and stuff, which was kind of interesting because I was interested
Just
in
a
that.
little bit.
Well, but then I flew to South America, and there's a group of extraterrestrials down there that were in the jungles, and they're plants. They were look like humans, but they're plants. They're chlorophyll based.
But are they mobile?
Yes, they're plants. They
Like
look
the
like us.
triffids.
They're just like you and I, only they breathe in our poison, and they breathe out oxygen. Now, I don't care what they look like. They're my brothers. You understand? We've got our oxygen content on this planet.
We can't even get along with our other colored
Right.
brothers and sisters,
Well,
much less
anyway,
our tree people brothers and sisters.
Exactly. But anyway, they were there to see if they could live with us symbiotically. The trouble is, what are we doing in Brazil?
Destroying.
We're spraying all of the poisons all over would affect them. Well, one of the unusual things in the data that they had, now this give you that. The data said the same identical thing. The light begins the conception and the gas krypton form.
Okay.
Now, also when I was down there, they happened to, the contactee had cancer. And they asked if the extraterrestrials could help, and they said, yeah. And they gave him a salve. And the salve, they put on the palms of the hand. You know how your hands get warm in your palms and the soles of your feet? Well, the salve was absorbed into these two levels, or two areas. And in a couple days, a scab formed. And you pull the scab off, and the cancer was gone.
Amazing.
I happened to get a sample of that salve. Wouldn't you like to have one? And I flew it to Chemitox Laboratories in Boulder, Colorado, and for 2 days we did the spectrographic analysis on it. That basically takes the substance was kind of like a waxy stuff, and you dissolve it so it becomes dissolved fluid in the spectrographic analysis, which basically the spectrum of equipment. Anyway, at that time I was in contact with Dr. Alan Hynek, who was supposedly the liaison between the government and the extraterrestrial stuff. Then I flew it down to him. That was before I found out he worked for the CIA.
Isn't he involved with the AIDS and all that as well? Hynek? Oh, Hynek, he was the UFO person.
That's right.
Okay,
Remember
never mind.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind? You signed him
I'm confusing
out
him with someone
for-
else, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, this product, I have the analysis. I gave it to him, and I still have it. From a chemistry background, I don't have anything. I look at it, and nothing matches up to what we have.
So the spectrum rather was not able. When you broke it down to its constituent parts, you couldn't
we didn't have
identify
anything
it
to match anything. I could show it to people. We actually put a lot of that information in another book for people who wanted to know more about it.
Right.
There's a lot of things that happen. When I took all the pictures I got from Billy, and I'll be showing some tomorrow, even some that I took.
Okay.
I flew to Beijing, China, before you could get behind before it was open to the public, and I was talking to their, if you're going to call it their astronomers and things up there. I thought I was going to show them something, and they tromped out a little book about as thick as the Handbook, which we give for people. Only 8.5 by 11 side. It's a monthly publication that the Chinese have on the ongoing direct contacts that are going on in China.
And that's a mainstream publication they have?
Well,
or
China's
more like
controlled. It's controlled society, but they have a government publication on it.
Okay.
They're totally aware of the extraterrestrial thing.
Oh, I'm sure, without doubt.
Yeah, well, and I flew everywhere. I wanted to find out what the truth was.
Let me ask you one thing. Okay, there are obviously a lot of contactees with different groups that are coming here, again, as we said, to this important planet, coming together at this point, at this important time for a reason. Are they all coming here offering some sort of assistance if we are asking it and that sort of thing? I mean, as far as the contactees that you've been able to, that have the information that tends to corroborate your information, obviously there's positive and negative, yin-yang, there's going to be dark light as far as the intent of the extraterrestrials and their manipulations or their interactions.
Everything you said is correct. Also, part of the problem is a group of extraterrestrials said that basically if they created us in the first place, we're a lower life form, like we experiment with animals.
Right, sure.
So people are being abducted and they're being experimented with too. There is a group of extraterrestrials, frankly, that hope we're going to destroy ourselves.
I'm sure there are
in
several.
a very short period of time. Now, the Plan 2000, which I'll discuss tomorrow, and which coincides with the end, beginning, if you want to call it, of the Mayan calendar, the year
Right.
2012.
Oh, I have a copy of the Mayan calendar here.
So we're running out of time as a
Yes,
sequence
right.
because of the
Right,
cycle of the planet's location within the universe.
And obviously there are culminating cycles that are occurring right now at this point in
All
time.
at the same time.
And this is part of the observation process that we are deemed so important by these observers and
Right.
these interlopers.
Well, the ones that need to do that. Now, the basis of everything is to awaken each person to what their responsibility to this play is all about.
And that they are a human becoming human.
I am a human becoming, help me become is a prayer or a mantra, however you want to do it, which
Right.
allows the extraterrestrials to contact you. Now, the people that can't come to my lecture, for instance, tomorrow, all they have to do is call my 800 number, 729-4131, and guess what? they're going to get one of these books free.
And you can get it online as well, correct?
And you can get it online at nohoax.com. I suggest you read the special message for you. That's on the online. And when you get to reading that, there's a little place to put your name and address on it.
Okay.
And we'll send it out to you free because, frankly, if we don't do this, we're not going to have a planet left. And that's the reason why I'm out here.
You are going at great lengths, you know, to put in your time and effort into getting this information out for some reason. You're not just running around doing this just for kicks and grins.
See, I live in two worlds. I live with the bad guys. Some of them are still friends of mine, and they kind of advise me how long they, you know.
Are they treating this as just some kind of a competitive game, or how are they looking at it? How are they viewing it?
They think they've won already. They seriously do. They think they've won. They think everybody's asleep. They won't do anything about it, and that's exactly what the game is. But you're going to make a difference, and your audience is going to make a difference if we can awaken
all of you
them.
folks that are viewing, trust, you are viewing at this point in time for a specific reason. We're all gathered here together for a specific reason. So please remember that and embrace that fact. Run with it, please. There's a real reason this information is being brought to the public at this time.
That's true.
And we can't be victims any longer. We really, George, think about what it means to be a victim and how we avoid the victim mentality briefly. How do you get out of that rut?
Well, the first thing is choice, and you have to choose of whether you really are a human being and what it means to be a human being. I mean, that's the first thing, and most people never ask the three most important questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? Because most people are constantly in their minds. They never are in their intellects or in their hearts or connecting. They're always in futuring or pasting. And they're in their minds. And as I have learned more and more, that has been a very, very there have been an orchestrated set of events that have created the manipulation of our media, the manipulation of our skies, the manipulation of our food, the manipulation of all the information into us so that we do not stay in the present. We do not ask basic questions. And when one is finally quiet enough to be in the present and ask those three questions, if you listen to that inner voice, the first answer is, no, I'm not a rock star, or I'm not, I can be a rock star or a father, a businessman, or whatever. But the deeper we go is that we are part of the creation. We are part of the light creation. And when one finally gets to that reality, then you realize you're here to become aware of that, and this is what the whole game is about. And friends, whether we have all the right information here on this third dimensional plane, people have been saying a lot of the stuff I've said for years is not correct. But it doesn't really make that much difference whether everything I'm saying is correct. The most important thing is, who are you and why are you here? And I know a lot of the things that George is saying is really far out, and it's hard to digest. I mean, I'd study this stuff 8-10 hours a day, and some of the things George has been telling me today, it's like,
yeah, it's challenging my belief paradigm as well.
I have to take some pretty deep breaths, and whether I believe it fully or not, I'm just in the process of processing it. I've thought about these things for many years. But unless you process, unless you think, unless you open up your mind, unless you allow these concepts, these third-dimensional concepts of present survival versus present or future slavery, and actually present slavery, and about what you are going to do, what your choice is. And when you are a victim, you close off free will. You just go, you don't think about this. You're in futuring or pasting. But you all are more than that. You know that. You're watching the show for a reason. You are a human being. And a human being is in the present, and you can use discernment and have your own strength, and you're multidimensional. And that's something that's a fact. But unless you access that through free will, then your karma is going to be there.
Yeah. George, I got a saying for people, though. It's okay to look back, don't stare.
Yeah,
Too many people want to stay in the back and where they were. We have to now is, the first rule in the universe is to gain all knowledge so we can wisely follow
because it
the
is our
laws.
birthright. correct? To have knowledge?
It's your right, period. That is what the game's about. Birthright, I'm not going to say that because you don't know when the birth occurred.
Okay.
That's because you live many lifetimes. And
True,
there is no, as my friend Daniel Brinkley says, there's no such thing as death. I mean, he's been dead 4 times.
Right, I've heard about that guy.
So he doesn't, he said, you know.
Well, I have that as my belief system as well.
He
but
said, it does, no, I just make a transition. I mean,
right.
that's what he's running
it's
around.
like a change of clothes, in other words, from one body to the next as far as your
you don't know
journey.
what each person's journey is. That's between you and the creation. Above all, as the Pleiadians say, above all things is the creation. And above that, there's still mysteries. Within the universe, there's a lot of mysteries. Don't make it mystical, however. The universe is very logical.
Right, I feel that's the case as
And
well.
that's what you have to keep in it. And don't look for somebody to come save you because you're going to do your own saving.
Right, we got to remind people that, exactly. Nobody's going to come jump through the window and pull you out of your rut. You have to realize this on your own. That's the first point, realize it, and then start to realize your potential of what you can do in your own area to uplift yourself and help others as well.
Exactly.
But as far as the ideas that those that wish to enslave us are brewing and hashing out right now, can you give us some insight into how you see that playing out in the near term and how we can head that off and how we can counter some of that?
The problem is it's so orchestrated behind the scenes. I mean,
Right.
all you do is pick up the paper right now, and if you understand the plan, you can pick up every headline, and you can see that there's something going on. It's like Tony Blair yesterday saying, well, I'm no longer going to use the pound. We're going to have a referendum going to the euro.
Right.
What is the game what is number 10 Downing Street doing? Why did the Rothschilds go out of the gold business? All these things are part of a huge play that was put in writing 26 years ago. Because I sat in on the meetings, and it called for a war to get started in the Middle East in the year 2000. They're a little bit behind schedule, which is to spread to the United States. Now, I'm going to tell you what they have planned. That does not have to affect you.
Right.
And that's what the subject is here. Everything. Well, actually, I can't even say that. It's going to affect everybody. The question is, how are you going to go through this with all the information and releasing the fear factor, knowing that it's part of how the creation works. Out of the chaos, which is going to be a lot of chaos. I mean, you have to really look at it. What if you had to live on $1 a day right now? Would that be kind of a feeling of chaos? 1/3 of the planet is living that way right now. 1/3. There's 6.3 billion people on this planet right now. We're increasing by 300,000 a day. 3 million every 10 days. The size, how many people are in this city?
About 1.3.
Every 4 days, we're increasing the size of the population of this city. Imagine the infrastructure necessary to continue that. Meanwhile, what's happening to the water supply, the air supply, the food supply. So what you're getting to look at, and what I will be sharing, is what I call the big picture, and that's the title of my lecture, is to give you an overview of all this, and I'll also tell you where you can find sources to verify it on your own, so you can come into balance on how the universe works. And again, the solutions, the only ones that I know are based in the books that I have ended up publishing for the extraterrestrials. I'm their publisher. I've agreed to go that far. How's that? Which is kind of it's an interesting way to put it out, but that's what we're doing.
May I ask you also, there are other Pleiadian contactees that have some renown, like Barbara Marciniak and Barbara Hand Clow, I think is the other woman's name.
Barbara and Jerry Clow are friends of mine. I was actually thinking about merging in with them. Here is the situation. When I was with the Pleiadians in Switzerland, they said that they were in constant communion with Spirit. In other words, everybody's always,
trying to reach that point of enlightenment.
Well, but let's look at it this way. Biblically speaking, where it says in the beginning, as John 1, it says in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God.
Yes.
Well, let's change the one word. In the beginning there was thought,
Right.
and thought was God. Well, if you pray, aren't you putting out thought?
Yes, absolutely.
And if you meditate, aren't you hoping to receive thought?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the combination then, obviously, thought is the product of the creation, or that creation's thought is another term you could use for God.
Right, so we mirror that process in our little meditations and our contemplations.
Well, but if the next thing is, if we are an extension of the creation, and as the Pleiadians say, they're in constant communion,
Right.
then we have to learn how to get to that state ourselves. Now,
Right.
the Pleiadians that I got involved with originally,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not involved with them. They didn't give me this information. This is actually at the creational level, not only of this universe, but others also. We are so out of balance on this planet, the vibrations are affecting other universes. So it's more important that these books are very important for everybody on mankind. Frankly, the way things are looking right now, there's a potential that we won't have a planet left. And I'm doing everything I can to get information to rethink the ending of the story. Because the Plan 2000 calls for a reduction of the world's population to basically zip. And, you know, one of our presidents put that in writing, and I was asked to be his finance chairman, and I have all that. And I sat in on meetings as they're planning on exterminating us, as we said at that time, expendable containers. Right now we're considered nothing more than a commodity to the guys that are planning on taking over the world. Why are they exporting all the jobs to other countries? Because you're a cheap commodity. Anyway, the pieces of the puzzle need to be put together, and I'll try to do that tomorrow, but also to try to give you that there is a way through this to empower you, to awaken you up, since you know that the temple is within.
Right,
that means you're
absolutely.
nothing more than a spirit inside this hologram.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow I'll demonstrate the hologram. So you'll understand. I'll take people out of the audience and I'll prove that you're nothing more than a hologram.
That'll be interesting. So a lot of folks, especially in this area and other areas too, that around the country, are somewhat taking exception at the plans that are being laid, these well-laid plans, and we're trying to, you know, counteract at some level. And I myself just feel that I feel like I need to be sovereign. I need to maintain my own, you know, thoughts and what have you, you know, and I want to be a group player certainly, but nonetheless, I think the ideas of sovereignty are what need to be revisited and emphasized.
Well, that word that you're using as sovereign is a correct one. In that what we originally set up. The problem involved with this is that each one of us, all of us that are sitting here in this room, are all interacting with each other right now. So the bubbles are affecting everybody, not only this room, but also the people that are viewing this.
Right.
And the effect that we can put out to people to affect them. Our sovereignty is based on what? On the relationship of balance. It's all out of balance. Most people's sovereignty is running down and getting their paycheck on Wednesday.
True,
So that's been limited there. What if the paycheck goes away? What I'm going to do tomorrow in our lecture is explain to people how the structure works of our economic system
Right.
and try to get you into a position where you'll have some kind of means to make it through what's coming down.
And I think that's a good point to emphasize. We really need to be resilient in this day and age and adaptable, flexible.
Our country was founded with a constitution. It's like everybody says we're going to write a new constitution in Iraq, right? Why don't,
I've been hearing that.
well, why don't they just take ours? We don't use it. It's a much bigger game, but it's true.
No,
I mean,
it's sad but true. I mean, we laugh, but we cry at the same time on a weekly basis here.
Everything that we're doing right now from the government, we have capitulated the Constitution to basically a kingship, which is against the Constitution right now. We have a leader
Agreed.
that was not really elected, who is given powers that are not constitutional. We don't have a Congress that will follow for. They don't even read the Constitution. There's no provision for him to do what he's doing. And yet, what you're asking for is how do we be sovereign away from these people when I talked to the head of FEMA, actually this morning I get information, 22 trucks, FEMA trucks were loaded up today. That's a Federal Emergency Management Agency that's enacting right now, preparing for the coming.
They're not going to the Midwest right now to help out the tornado victims currently?
Well, there's the things that are coming down what they're doing is preparing right now for the possible terrorist activities that are going to occur between.
Not a matter of if it win, not a matter of if it win, not a matter of if it win.
That's
those?
right.
I've
Yeah.
heard about those.
Yeah, but it's going to come up between now and possibility Independence Day to show how free the United States really is, so we can take away more of your rights.
Why don't you tell them about what happens when martial law is declared and if it is not taken out after 30 days?
Oh, well, it's not actual. What happens is, in case of a national emergency of any reason, if Bush declares it at this minute, we come under the heading of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Under that provision, our president basically runs things for 30 days. After 30 days, it's mandatory it's turned over to the United Nations. And under the United Nations, then they take over the position. You understand, we've shipped out most of our troops overseas. We don't have any military here, except for the United Nations troops. In the
We don't even have
United
as
States.
many chemtrails currently because they've got the pilots over
There's
there.
another agenda on that, too. There's a couple of things.
It's so multifaceted, it's really hard to...
No, there's not one thing. Well, I'm getting ready to publish a book Will Thomas has on chemtrails to tell you what the real reason is. And I'll discuss that tomorrow rather than going into it tonight.
Right.
There's several reasons. One of the reasons the chemtrails are up there is there are a group of scientists that are, and I'll just share this right now because there's a group of scientists that are so concerned of what we're doing with the oxygen content and what the planet is. You realize we're killing off 1,000 life forms a day right now. You know why? Shall I give you some history to give you an understand why the weather's all going on?
We're short on time.
Well, I'll make it quick.
Okay.
In 1904, there was a British officer by the name of Colonel Francis Younghusband who led an expedition to Tibet. The Tibetan monks were guarding the ancient documents of Atlantis and Lemuria. In the documents, it showed the planet was engineered for 500 million people, and it was going to flip on its axis about the year 2000, and the secrets of nuclear fusion. Well, he didn't know what to do with it in 1904. I mean, 5% of the people could read or write at that time. So he gave it to his boss, which was Lord Curzon, who was the Viceroy of India. He then looked at it and sent it to London. That's the center of the universe. They determined that there was about 2 billion people on the planet, or 4 times the Earth's carrying capacity at that time. So what they did is they put together a project called Eden Return. The best scientists at that time were the Germans under Bismarck. And they gave them the nuclear technology. They led an expedition to Dagunsta, Siberia, where they launched the first nuclear explosion.
Is that what blew those trees down?
That's right.
Okay.
And I have documents. In fact, I have a video, it's in my catalog, which you can see and listen to the people talk about that actually saw it happen, and the radiation's there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, what had happened is the Germans miscalculated because the planet has flipped before on its side. I mean, I went to mines. You got the back door out there along the hogback, and you can see the magnetic changes and fish and everything else that were up there at one time. At any rate, what occurred is at that point that the Germans kept the technology pretty secret. But as you remember, well, maybe you don't know, at the end of World War II, we took the German U-boats that were all nuclear powered right out of the chute. In 1938, the Germans were selling enriched uranium to the Japanese. Also, some of the German command were also secret agents for us, and so we got nuclear technology, and we started doing the above-ground nuclear testing. So did Russia and China. That radiation has gone up around the planet, formed a band about 4 miles thick, which is eating holes through the ozone, which is then hitting, this ozone's coming down, killing off the largest oxygen producers on the planet, which is the plankton in the ocean, and the plants. Mm-hmm. They turn black, right, when they die? So when the sun hits something black, what does it do? Heat up, right? What's the ocean doing? Heating up. So what is happening is that you're having that's the first thermal barrier. Now you're having winds that are coming up. You got tropical fish in Alaska. Mm-hmm. Beside us mining the ocean, taking it off, all of a sudden we're getting all these weather changes. Mm-hmm. The ozone layer with all these holes in it, allowing the ultraviolet and the gamma rays to come down, are killing off, like I say, 1,000 life forms a day, including your local airline pilot. Mm-hmm. Ask your United pilot or your Delta or anybody else next time you go up, ask them if they're wearing the radiation detectors, because a lot of them are right now, because they know above 38,000 feet they're coming down sick with radiation poisoning.
Interesting.
You didn't know that, did you?
No. It's
now your audience knows.
Right. So ultimately, in a nutshell, are they trying to stave off those effects with the chemtrails? Is that
They're trying to create a cobweb effect to allow to stave off the effects of the gamma rays.
And so all the negative health effects and things of that nature, that's just an unfortunate side effect?
That's a side effect of what these guys are doing. They've neglected the other problem, is that the high wind currents at the high velocities of the up there is carrying them all over, so they're not being successful creating this net to protect the planet.
One quick interjection. What about the fact that we are electromagnetic beings and the fact that these aluminum particles would theoretically block with this webbing any kind of telepathic capacity or any kind of thought process transfer on a large scale?
Well, let's come back to what you're talking about. Using ELF, extremely low frequency, and the projects that they've done up in Canada right now, in other words, sending out all the waves that they have, mm-hmm. along with the radio signals and everything else that we have mm-hmm. now reached a point now where you can pretty much control the way you think. Mm-hmm. They're able to create holograms of people, and generate them in places. They can also transmit thoughts. We do that every day.
Well, a simple example of that transmission is like the line on the football games they transmit during the live broadcast.
Exactly.
You know, they can do that to a more detailed degree.
Well, but we'd even do more than that.
I'm sure.
Subliminally, when you're watching a television program, if they want to, they can reprogram the way you think. The kids that are born now, by the time they're 5 years old, spent more time in front of a television set than they do their entire time with their parents. Not only are we doing that, we're putting kids to school, we're setting them up. The first thing we do is to give them a virtual reality game, and it's called Pokemon or some other venture of killing people.
One step away from reality, or one step further from reality.
Well, but Pokemon is a Japanese game, which means pocket monster. So what these kids are learning, that there is nothing there, and you're nothing more than a virtual reality game to them, so life means nothing. So why do we have the Columbine Project, and why do we have the soldier? They forget that life is important, and that's what the games are programming everybody. You get all caught up into these things, and it's another part of the lie.
I would agree. You know, we have this limited time left. Maybe we can grab some calls from the public if they wouldn't mind giving us a call here, and just seeing if you can offer up a little insight or comments or questions, and we'll be taking those here momentarily. But please continue with your any last finishing ideas.
See, it hasn't even started.
with this brief time that we have available today. Well, actually, we're starting to get calls, so let's go ahead and let's see what we've got going on here. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
I was wanting to know, do you think car gasoline, all these cars out here polluting up the air and stuff, or, I mean, do you think there's a solution to it as far as the cars, all these cars we got, especially in Austin?
Okay, we'll let you go with that comment.
Oh, well, the comment was basically that all of the emissions that you get out of cars is a pollutant. Actually, they have devices right now that they can just burn water. Let me explain to you how that works.
Okay.
I have my ex-father-in-law that was comptroller of General Motors.
If you want to be a billionaire or a trillionaire, write down what he's saying, okay?
You know something? The simplicity of things.
Oh, I know. I'm kidding, but I'm serious.
I know, but the universe it isn't a question of the money. It's a question of maintaining mankind right now.
Correct.
The chemical formula for water is not what most people think it is. You think it's H2O, but it's actually HOH. It's hydrogen on both sides with oxygen in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And if you take a tripler off of the high voltage section of your picture tube, for instance, of your television set, that's the high voltage section, you can generate about 120,000 volts into a piece of water, which breaks it down into hydrogen and oxygen. You can do it in a device about the size of 2 cigarette pack size. Now, by doing that, then all we do then is have hydrogen. Now, if I just pour water into a device with that tripler in it, now I have the energy source to convert into your car to burn it. And when it burns, what does it create?
Nothing.
Water
Hardly.
vapor.
Just water vapor?
Exactly. So now you have a way to run your car. Now, do they have those devices? Yes, they do. Do you have them? No, they don't. Don't you know how the government works? If we give you a grant to do something, and you go out and create it, under the grant provisions, they get to keep that technology or it's sold to somebody else.
Yeah, the snake provision. They snake it from you.
I just got a friend that got 3, quote, not copyrights, but patents from the government, all off of the alien spacecraft. You know, most of our technology come off of crashed discs at this point. But he got 3 of them so he could introduce it into technology to make him money. I mean, this whole game is a question of greed or what is it? I'm looking at what's the highest and best good for mankind.
Well, I think it's energy exchange. And energy exchange could be condensed into money and monetary materialistic thoughts?
Well, not even do that. If it's money, believe it or not,
power, I should say, perhaps would be more appropriate.
That's a better way to do it. I mean, Henry Kissinger said the absolute aphrodisiac is power. All right,
And we
money,
see that.
in the definition of money, there isn't one. They don't, in their own book, and I have it, they don't give a definition.
And that's why I
of money.
speak in terms of energy, because
That's probably a way to do
But for the folks at home, money is something they can identify
Anyway,
with, so I have to revert
that's
back.
the answer. There is ways to get rid of the cars.
Okay.
Actually, it's better answers than that. But
Okay, let's grab another call quickly. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
If I come to the meeting tomorrow, will you allow us to film it?
Can they film tomorrow's meeting?
sure.
And Chris, we're having difficulty hearing in here for some reason. If you could allow us a little bit more audio. So okay, you guys can film. If anybody wants to show up tomorrow with a camera, you're allowed to
Or
film.
record.
Or record
Yeah.
as well.
No secrets.
Caller, you're on the air.
I'm on, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the world is ready now to see their presence, and if they want to, they can represent themselves to a wide audience at once. I think they don't need individual representatives like yourself to represent.
Okay, well, thanks for your comment. I appreciate that. I really, who knows what their methods and means are? You know, are you a contactee perhaps? Maybe you have your own means that you are disseminating information. And I can understand your sentiment about these intelligences not necessarily needing one person, but apparently that's the means by which they operate.
No, they have a lot of people they're in contact, and I'm not the only one. And not
Right,
only that,
right.
the people that get this book, they don't ask me. I'm filling in a lot of blanks for people as I run it around because they get curious. And my attitude is that we're running out of time, and as much information that I can put in a small amount of time. I promise, if you come to our meeting tomorrow, your head will be spinning when you get through, because I'm going to spend about 3.5 hours.
And if you record it, you'll be able to fall back on that information for some time to come as well.
That's correct.
Yeah, let me go down there. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Okay, thanks for your comments. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
You're a retard.
Hello, caller, you're on the air. Okay, I guess not. Well, we still have several minutes
One
left.
more there. One more.
Okay. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, is that seminar free tomorrow?
No, the seminar is not free. We don't discuss prices on access. If you want any information about the seminar, I would ask you to call the number on the screen, and you'll get more information that way, and then you can, hopefully they can answer all your questions.
One thing that happens, everybody that attends will get one of these handbooks.
Okay.
Everybody that gets one.
Okay. You get a little starter kit for your own paradigm shifting
That's
projects.
right.
And I'll tell you what, if you do read the booklet, whether you agree with it or not, it will open your mind. And it is it goes in, and the concepts are so huge that it will make you think about concepts that you probably haven't thought about before.
Right, there's a term trigger, and certain people are triggered in a certain fashion where something will get into their consciousness and it'll just automatically spark them and they'll have some enlightening or some understanding. Other people it sinks in slowly and takes time. It may take who knows how long, depending on different people, but that's a way to consider it. You know, this information may not ring true to you immediately, but it's something to consider nonetheless. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, we're at the North Cross Mall.
In the Norris conference room, and there's a number on the screen that
In
you
the
can.
south entrance of North Cross Mall.
It's not a huge mall, you guys. I trust if you can get to the mall, you can pull this off. I really have confidence in you guys. Hello, caller. Okay, thanks for viewing. And maybe that's your concept of a paradigm. Hello, caller, are you on the air?
Hey, man, I love you.
Hello, caller, are you on the air?
Yes. Will Mr. Green speak on what he was talking about, the state of emergency that he states will happen between now and the 4th of July?
Yes.
Any other further questions or comments? Thank you for viewing. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I actually got through?
Yes, you are. You're live right now.
You know, I was sitting watching you guys tonight, and all my life I have known what this was going to happen.
You just felt it was true?
I know it's true.
Okay, and what is your source of information?
There is no problem.
What is your source of inspiration to feel that this information is true? You just automatically feel that it's true?
No, I've had a lot of things happen to me in my lifetime, and I figured it happened to everybody, but evidently it don't.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but no, you're right. It doesn't happen to everybody, and different people gain insight, different venues, different means, and again, it could be a sudden wha-bam, or it could take a gradual process of unfolding. Let's see. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey.
Okay. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
All right. I was wondering if I saw one of these aliens, would they look like a human to me?
You know, there's a lot of different extraterrestrials, so they're all humanoid looking. Now, whether they're tall or short or whatever they are, tomorrow I'm going to show you some remains of extraterrestrials. You're going to come up to the show, aren't you?
I'm going to try, yeah.
Yeah, you do it. I'll show you some of the remains that we have available in our museum, showing their skulls and everything else. So you can see, like Queen Nefertiti, if you look back, and had a long skull. and that was a different group of extraterrestrials. A lot of them have interacted with us for a long time.
And don't let your financial concerns sway you or dissuade you or keep you from coming to this event. Don't let any financial concerns prevent you from coming down to this event. If you have an interest in coming down to this event, please come down to this event. That's about the bottom line as far as that's concerned.
One other thing.
Yes?
Is there, by our spiritual growth, can we get past this as being something that's going to be devastating? And I'll hang up and let you answer.
Thank you for your comments.
That's the purpose of why I'm here, to allow you a way to go through this. As the chaos occurs all around you, you should be in a position of balance with everything that's there and be part of the solution, because nobody's left out. We don't care how old you are.
Right. No victims here. We can all participate at some level. That's why you are viewing this program tonight. This may not immediately click in and kick in with you, but chew on it a while. See what it means to you after a couple of days or maybe a week. And maybe if you go to the seminar tomorrow, you'll have even more opportunities for unfolding of consciousness shift, paradigm shift, just information exchange. That's our key thing right here. We're trying to get some ideas out there to the public. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, if we're not able to go, would there be a way we could get a tape later of it?
This program is being rebroadcast in the future, so you'll have an opportunity to see this information. You'll be able to view this again. I don't know as far as plans for... There are going to be some people filming, I'm sure.
That would...
Just so you know, a lot of my videos or my lectures are videoed, and in the catalog, if you call or go to my website or call my 800...
There's more information if you want to contact Mr. Green.
We have a 4-hour video on videotape that you can watch.
Okay. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Do you see or do you feel anything significant happening before the end of this year, before the election in this country, like happened in Spain with their elections, with the big attack?
I'm looking at the possibility of us not having an election at all. It's moving that way to have some kind of national emergency so Bush suspends the Constitution and no. I mean, it really doesn't make any difference at this point because both of the players we're being presented are part of the same team. And that's basically where it's at.
Yeah, in spite of who the leaders are, in spite of what the laws are, it's up to what we feel, our intent, and what we want to do. So proceed, according to your whims and desires, and don't let these hang-ups hold you up. There's just too many distractions. Go with your intuition and go with your gut feeling on these things. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we're not able to make the seminar tomorrow, if there's anywhere we can get our hands on that booklet, and if I could get there, will the doors be closing right at 2, or could you go halfway?
No, the doors won't be closing right at 2. We will ask for people to be quiet if they come late, but you will be able to get in if you come late. And
but it's at 2, so try to be prompt, please.
What about the booklet? Is there anywhere else you can get
if you were to show up, we're offering free copies of this book for anybody that shows up, and they're also available online at the website nohoax.com. So that's another venue or option for you to get the information. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I've been watching the program. I'm wondering what is the overriding thing that you're saying regarding the upcoming election?
Caller, let's skip that because we only have very brief time. We're not going to get into that. We actually are not going to take any further calls because we have about a minute left. And so, George, I want to really thank you very much for coming on the air and taking of your time and energy to get this message out and being a part of what we're trying to spark here in this area, which is just provoke a little thought and encourage people to not be victims and to take a little bit of self-responsibility. George, I want you to come on the show again in the future. Please consider being a guest in the future.
This is a great show. And again, think of all the possibilities and don't close your mind. Think of all the possibilities.
George, any last final parting comments? Very briefly?
No, I just want everybody to do a little mantra tonight. I am a human becoming, help me become.
Wonderful. Let's put that slate up as well.
And then come on out tomorrow.
Please do. And there I have a slate as well that's giving the information. And I just wanted to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. I want to thank my in-studio guests. You guys are great. Thank you very much. And thanks, Austin. Have a nice evening. Take care.